Staying with U.S. now, papers unsealed by an American court have revealed the reasons behind the August shutdown of a U.S.-based email service used by whistleblower Edward Snowden. They indicate that the founder of LavaBit, Ladar Levison, repeatedly denied the FBI's request to give them access to the system. And that eventually led him, in Levison's own words, to choose the lesser of the two evils and take down the email service. Let's now cross live to Ladar Levison himself now for some of the details on this. Now, thank you very much for being with us. Now, the FBI demanded you hand over the encryption codes to collect data from a specific account that is not named in the documents. What was your initial response?
That's actually not correct.
Okay.
What they demanded were the SSL keys that were protecting all of the data coming in and out of my network for all of my users. And that's what I had an issue with. You know, I've said before that I took the stance that I did not to try and protect a single person, but because I was concerned about the invasion and the sacrificing of everyone's privacy rights that was accessing my system.
Now, we're led to believe that you were threatened to be charged with criminal contempt if you did not comply. Do you feel like these threats would eventually become reality if you didn't follow their suit, if you will?
Oh, I know they would. In fact, they went on to charge me $5,000 a day for every day that I didn't turn over those keys, which is why I was eventually forced to hand them over. And given the difficult choice of remaining silent about what I thought was a grave injustice, or taking, like you said, the lesser of two evils and shutting down the service. I just wasn't comfortable knowing that they were examining all of the data coming in and out of my network without any kind of transparency or auditing by myself to ensure that they were only collecting the information they were legally authorized to, and continuing to run the service with that knowledge. So I made the only decision I felt was appropriate. In terms of being arrested, I think the only reason they didn't arrest me is because if they had, the system would eventually have shut down on its own with nobody to maintain it. It's one of the advantages of being a small business, is you wear many hats.
Now, the former NSA chief joked that he could have put Edward Snowden on some sort of a list, and many people have since speculated what type of a list could this be. Could it be a hit list, perhaps? Now, that seems tasteless. It doesn't sound like a funny joke to me. But how far is the government willing to go to cover up their actions or to stop these email encryptive systems?
As far as they're concerned, someone in my position should be able to force us to do anything humanly possible to aid in their investigation. I've heard lawyers say that, actually, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to use other people's words, but you know, they effectively feel like what they're doing. Yeah, I feel like they feel like what they're doing is right. And you know, they just look at it as they're going after a criminal. They don't see the implications of what they're doing. But from my perspective, somebody who's been entrusted with protecting the privacy of my users, protecting some of their most private information. You know, your email address is effectively the heart of your online identity. Everything else you do online is tied to an email account. And to allow them access to everyone's email accounts, allow them to intercept passwords, credit card numbers, new user registrations, to be able to collect IP address information, and then to be able to do it without telling anybody what they were doing or who they were collecting information on. You know, I was completely uncomfortable with that.
Well,
I just shuddered to think. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, you are a small business, basically, but what do you think about larger corporations like Google? They are now going to the U.S., suing the government to try and clear their name of having any affiliation with the NSA. What do you think about that?
the fact is, if you're a domestic company, you don't deal with the NSA directly. You deal with the FBI. And it's actually put the FBI in what I think is a very tenuous, unethical position, because they're now the slave to two masters. They do the work on behalf of the Department of Justice in terms of conducting domestic law enforcement investigations, and they do the work of the NSA by interacting with companies like my own who operate here domestically. If I were a foreign company, the NSA would have either broken into my servers electronically or found a local asset to do it for them physically. It's part of the reason I didn't want to move my system abroad. At least here in the US, they try and use the court system to compel you to do stuff. Right. But it's pretty scary to think about what lengths they're willing to go to conduct these investigations.
All right, appreciate your thoughts on the subject. Interesting to hear your perspective. Unfortunately,
I guess I was also going to say that sorry, Sean. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I appreciate your time. It's interesting to hear your perspective, certainly a unique one on this topic. Ladar Levison, founder of LavaBit, thank you very much for being with us here on RT.